It's not in the cards for you. I'm pretty good at insults, and I got the internet and a lot of free time.
Here's what's interesting about Gen Z. We are in orbit. We are inextricably linked to one another through biology in the reproductive transport cells and the reproductive stationary cell within, quote unquote, your women. And yet you still pursue age proximate relationships, knowing that it will convey less health, longevity, looks, and intelligence to the baby that you could end up making. So that's why in the past I've compared it to inbreeding. And there's also studies that say that men under the age of 25 shouldn't have babies because it corrodes the cell or whatever. I don't know. I've only read one study on that. I don't think it corrodes the cell or anything like that of the embryo. I think what happens is, well, one or two things could be true. There's more studies about it, and I don't know how to do the search in Google to find it, which is weird because I use Google all the time to find shit and always have. And the AI is really good at answering those questions, especially about Generation X males right now in 2025 about the reproductive transport cell and the enzymatic telomerase, which would create healthier babies. So that's interesting about Gen Z, is that even if they were to know this, would they change their minds? Well, that's what we need to find out. We need to find some sort of common ground, because just because we're linked biochemically, it doesn't mean that we should like hook up based on like no common ground. I personally like to design board games. That's my thing. I like to walk a lot, and I like to make videos on YouTube. That's what I do with the majority of my time. Most of my friends here where I live are Gen Z. Don't get me wrong, I have great friends that are millennials and Generation X, and even know some baby boomers that are kind of too tired to hang out, but always have something wise to say. So I'm an intergenerationalist when it comes to friends, and I would say that the vast majority of the people that I hang out with now, offline and online, are Gen Z. So it shows that we are inextricably linked. I know you're a video game generation, and I know most males watch sports, but I really don't. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't mind playing video games. It's just I don't own a system. I am a minimalist, and I don't participate in pleasing myself very often, except when it comes to listening to music and walking around. That's about how I do myself, is like making videos too, explaining some things and trying to get rid of the hypocrisies that separate us as people. Ageism, bigotry, that causes bad health in baby, no good. But what are some of our common grounds? I don't see anything but hate from your generation. Oh, I'm not saying you're hateful. I'm saying that you don't show love towards my Generation X ass in the romantic sense, when you really probably should. I mean, the ways that you convey yourself through the world are through being anti-bigots. Unless you're Trump supporters, then fuck you, I'm not dating you. But Democrats and liberals and leftists are anti-bigots. And let's talk about classism, weightism, and ageism for a second. Or did I just knock those out by specifying that those are the bigotries? Probably. So we need to find something where I like you, other than just you be the ideal woman to have babies with. Look at fruiting plants for an example of age gap relationships that works for all life. Because the seed is not until the fall when the apple falls from the tree and hits the soil, but the pollination occurs in the spring with a gap of summer where there's growing. So that's really comparable to a Gen Z woman dating a Gen X dude as well. And it would confer more telomerase within the enzymes. I'm sorry, it would confer more telomerase within the plant through the enzyme telomerase to have that intergenerational breeding, probably. Because think about it. Just think about it. The seeding is in the fall. The pollination is in the spring. I hate to repeat myself, but it just seems dead obvious to me that if you took a racehorse in middle age and bred it with a young filly, you'd have the most prosperous racehorse, which is why they seem to breed stud horses after they've run their races when they're middle aged and can still breed. And of course, you take the young filly and breed it to the older stud horse, and then she becomes a mare after birthing a foal. And that's how they get strong racehorses, isn't it? So what if you took a dog that was a little bit older in its middle age, which would be about 7 or 8 years old, and then bred it with a 1-year-old adult female dog? Wouldn't that confer the most health to the baby? You look at things like intergenerational relationships where that's been proven to confer more telomerase, probably not as much as the age gap relationship, but it does seem to confer more intelligence, which would be more telomerase within the brain. And it seems to confer more health, which would be more telomerase in the muscles, and it does seem to confer better looks, which is more telomerase in the bone structure and the muscles of the face. And longer living, it seems, would be an attribute, because that's been proven by intergenerational relationships. I'm just saying there's a lot of different ways to confer more telomerase, but the age gap relationship is probably the one that would confer the most in a baby, because it confers a lot. I mean, middle-aged men are supposedly the one male that are the best male to breed with, and we know so much more about the ova being loaded in telomerase between the ages of 18 and 25. Otherwise, aneuploid retardation of the follicles of the cell hit about the age 26. Again, I'm not saying your kids are retarded, but they're kind of retarded. You know what I mean? All the fornication, all the hooking up, all that stupid shit. You know, all the loveless sex. They're kind of retarded. The fact that a large majority of this country voted for Trump, yeah, we're kind of a retarded country at this point. The fact that these libtards think that we should just have parity with these mega Republican assholes and just forgive them for their transgressions. That's a little retarded, don't you think? How they barge into a situation and break bro code to get your girl because they're Republicans and they're rule breakers and they don't give a fuck. Even though they talk about, like, law and order, they're breaking the rules of being a man. They're not men, they're bitches. So, look at that fact. Look at the fact that, you know, if you have integrity and get the girl, you're a better dude. What he did to me was not integritous when I was hanging out with her. What she did to me by going with him was not integritous by her going with him. But they have a history of drug abuse, which is common among them. So they pal around together and they're now in a relationship. And of course, I told him about telomerase. He should tell her about that because they should have babies if that's the case. And I should get mine. I will get mine because we're inexplicably linked to Gen Z. Spring, fall romance within fruiting plants. Breeding the stud horse to the young filly. Let's find some commonalities before we find hypocrisies and bigotry, shall we? Why are theists such dicks? You know what I mean? Like, if they believe in God, then they have that selfish desire to only serve themselves when it comes to the things that you want. You know what I mean? Gen Z theists, all I've asked you to do is introduce me to hot women. That's all I've asked you to do for several years. It used to be the millennials, but the millennials never did any of that shit. They just like bitched about, oh, women are not objects. I already know all that shit, but you use the term hooking up or linking up, they'll presume that you mean that women are objects because they're fucking retards, these libtard idiots. And their mega Republican friends. So, you know, hook it up, Gen Z. Stop being selfish. Hook me up with hot Gen Z women, or one. Just one would be enough to prove that you love me. You know what I mean? Introduce me to one beautiful Gen Z woman, Gen Z, and then I won't presume that you're a generation of ageist bigots, which you really seem to be. It's all about your selfish desire to have your own when you have a higher power. When you abandon that higher power, you see more humanity. You see humanism is more the way. You see secularism. You see being fair is the only way. When you preach against greed, you show people that you're not greedy. Unlike the fucking Republicans that preach for law and order, then break every rule they can because they're a bunch of fucking assholes and hypocrites. Just look at Ken Ham, you know, gays are bad, you know, and turns out he's gay or bisexual or whatever, but he's totally a homo. You know, these anti-gay preachers always turn out to be gay. So when you talk about, like, you know, law and order from the Republicans, and then they turn around and vote a felon into office who has 34 felonies against him, it's pretty obvious the Republicans are fucking retards. And then the libtards are like, well, it's the president, we should respect it. We should just, you know, respect the fact that a fucking fascist is in office. No, we should fight at every level that we possibly can as Democrats and liberals and leftists and try to make this shit go away. I'm not saying be violent. I'm saying within the bounds of the law. So if you don't want healthy babies, breed age Proximus, because I'm not going to shut up about this. Because the high telomerase level is in middle-aged men between the ages of 35 and 55, and that is the enzyme that conveys health. So you have to breed with middle-aged men to have the healthiest babies, and you have to obviously breed with young nubile women between the ages of 18 and 25 to have the healthiest babies, and if you combine them, maybe our country won't be so fucking retarded anymore, and we'll have an intelligent, health-wise, you know, longevity country based on scientific knowledge. You want to call it eugenics, but what about interracial breeding, you hypocrite? I'm not against interracial breeding because that confers a lot of telomerase too. Not as much as the intergenerational breeding with the age gap between of the generation millennial being largely ignored sexually and romantically. We've seen how Gen Z women interact with Gen X dudes and how it works well. It's just a matter of finding that integritous path to their hearts that isn't like the fucking Republicans where they'll break bro code and then get the chick because the chick is lazy. Theists, hook it up. You know what I mean? Theists, prove that your love is good. You know, show romantic love towards me. Atheists, same. Agnostic, same. I want Gen Z to show romantic love towards me because I want to have babies and you want to have babies, and it's pretty dead obvious once you know about the enzyme of telomerase growing the telomeres of the chromosomes. Telomeres. I'm not trying to be adjunct, I'm just trying to pronounce things as they are, and I fucked up, sorry. So let's make this possible, no matter what you believe. It's your behavior that counts. And what I'm seeing from Gen Z is the behavior of selfishness and greed. And they really should introduce me to hot women because I want to really want to find my wife. For thousands of years, man thought that the sun orbited the earth and the earth was flat until 1515 when a priest by the name of Copernicus said that the earth was orbiting around the sun like Venus and Mars. Of course, he didn't get imprisoned like Galileo in 1632 because he was a priest, while Galileo was a layman and a scientist. So, you know, it just goes to show that there are periods and points in time where man is often wrong. And we thought that younger males conferred the most health to a baby when they breed, probably for thousands of years, perhaps not in the periods of like where older males were breeding with younger females, predominantly in ancient Greece. I mean, it's kind of weird that Socrates lived to the ripe old age of 80 when they had no pharmaceutical medication to make you live that long. And that was average. About 70 something to 80 was average, just like it is today, thousands of years ago. But then about 1900, the average age was 50 years old. Could that be because we started with the youth entitlement of World War I, where a lot of that generation died off, so they thought, oh fuck, we have to breed and have babies so our species doesn't die, because the species almost died because of World War I and the influenza outbreak of 1917. We almost came to extinction. Look that shit up, because that's true as fuck. And then they started breeding again because they were available after the war. And, you know, then there was the 1930s and 40s where older men were breeding with younger women again. And then you started to see genius come out of the world, because we were in the most prosperous time in the 1950s. From 1946 to 1963, when the tax rate on the rich was ultra high. We were intelligent in some regards in the 1950s because we had the most prosperous economy in American history. Could that be because of the breeding between older men in the 1930s and 40s? Conferring more intelligence to the babies? Well, Cary Grant, Humphrey Bogart, I mean, they all had the younger ladies. You know what I mean? And as a matter of fact, you look at Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it seems like a metaphor for age gap relationships, because like he needed her virgin attribute, you could say he needed her blood, but really he needed her sex, is what I'm trying to say. And Bram Stoker's wife was like 30 years younger than him. So I think that Dracula could have maybe even inadvertently, been a metaphor for age gap relationships. So like I'm saying, we now believe in the heliocentric model, but we used to believe in the Earth-centric model, where the Earth was orbited by the sun. And there are many times where mankind has been wrong. That's just one case. Also, lead was safe for a long time, lead piping, you know, and, you know, then there was the intelligence drop and the barbarians invaded Rome because they were stupid, and radioactive lead, you know, polluted their brains. So there was another point where mankind presumed to be correct was lead piping, and we were dead wrong. You could say the same about gasoline, when solar power is also readily available, and also hemp fuel would probably be more efficient and better for the environment. I don't really care what the fucking Republicans are going to say, because they're wrong and we're right. And if you're conservative in this regard, where you deem ageism necessary for some damn reason, you may as well just go hang out with the conservatives, because you're a bigot. So what I'm saying is, if man was wrong about a couple of different things, then they could have been wrong about age gap relationships being bad. You have the paternal aging effect myth of 1912, which was obviously refuted by the 2012 discovery of middle-aged enzymatic telomerase within the reproductive transport cells. And we've known for thousands of years that younger women confer the most health to a baby, because what we know now is that aneuploid retardation of the cell follicle sets in around the age of 26. I'm not saying your kids are retarded. I'm saying your kids are normal. I'm saying I want extraordinary, though. Guys, my fellow Gen X dudes, brothers, we know that aging is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, you feel the aches and pains of age, right? But at the same time, cheese and alcohol, these Gen Z women nipping on their cheese and alcohol, you know, thinking, oh, we just want to date within our own age group because, you know, we want to make babies. But, you know, if you make babies with age proximate, it doesn't convey the most enzyme telomerase in the reproductive facilities. So if the reproductive facilities are linked, then the sexual drive is linked, the pituitary gland is linked, and that's often called the third eye. You know what I'm saying? Like, Gen Z women probably do belong with Gen X dudes biochemically, because of the high telomerase in the reproductive cells being at the high points at different age groups. We also know old growth is the large part of the forest, and the bark from it creates the soil, and a lot of the life is because of the old growth, and the old life maintains the young life through soil becoming grass and trees and all that. So it really is the older thing that conveys existence to the younger thing. Look at the sun. The sun is much, much older than the earth when it comes to millions of years. Yeah, it's like, what? Half a billion years apart between the age of the earth and the age of the sun. That's quite an age gap, if you ask me. I mean, the sun conveys all life to earth and all existence to earth, because all the things that are of earth came from the sun, including iron in our blood, including every bit and piece of us comes from the sun. The older object within the solar system conveys the life and the existence to the younger system, the planet. So we know this instinctually, that age is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it often conveys a lot of wisdom. I wouldn't say that Trump conveys a lot of wisdom, but then again, you know, he conveys a lot of chutzpah to the people that think that chutzpah means that an effective leader necessarily, when toxic masculinity is bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to accept that part too. That's why I don't really jive well with a lot of Generation X, because you're so conservative. You know what I mean? A large part of you voted for Trump. I'll poo-poo that. A large part of you are just these libtards that think that we should just, you know, bend over backwards for the fucking Republicans and date them sometimes. And I would never date a Republican. That's disgusting. You disgust me. You know, you're anti-woman rights when it comes to reproductive rights, and every right that a woman has ever gotten was fought long and hard by liberals and leftists. So I don't want to hear your Republican mouth. So don't really get along with a lot of Gen X dudes. I get along better with liberals and leftists of Gen X, sure. But I don't really get along well with most Gen X dudes, because they've gone down the redneck path or the thug path and the Republic thug path, and I don't really get along well with that. I jive better with younger people these days anyway, because I'm a socialist, and they're a largely socialist generation. At least half of them are socialists, and I would say that a lot less than half of Generation X are socialists. So I get along more with the left wing, and there's more left wing and there's more atheists among Gen Z than any other generation. So I like being around them. Sure, they might have some that are of a higher power believers, but you know, we know how they are. It's all about their needs, not ours. It's all about like, oh, I'm going to help my Christian brother, but I'm not going to help my atheist brother. That's bullshit. Because, John 13:34 says to love one another. It doesn't say exclude. Thomas the doubter was a disciple of Christ. Figuratively speaking, because Jesus didn't exist. It's made up of plagiarized stories from like 15 other religions around at the time, but that's beside the point. If you believe in the love of God, prove the love of God, because I want the relationship with love, romantic love. You can tell me you love me until the sky is black from all the black holes converging into one the size of the universe and a Google years of I love you, I love you, I love you. But if it's not romantic love, I don't believe you. It's just platonic love, and that's, boring. It's fine, but it's not what I'm really looking for. I'm trying to elevate that platonic love to romantic love, you see. They're nipping at their cheese and wine and alcohol, thinking age is a bad thing, when, middle-aged man will confer more telomerase in the reproductive faculties, and so will Gen Z women at this point in 2025. And it's really obvious when you see what I see of Gen Z women kicking it with Gen X dudes, how well and copacetic they get along, because they're linked at the pituitary gland. Eerie how well they get along. Eerie, but awesome. If you think about it selflessly. I lost a girl to a Gen X dude, but I lost her to a Republican. So, you know what I mean? Love you, but big time fuck you. Forget the existence of God for a second. Proving that exists is impossible because you think that it goes beyond proof, that it's a matter of faith. Okay, well, that's fine. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Let's not try to prove the existence of God. Let's try to prove the existence of the love of God. Here's what I want. I want a hot Gen Z wife between the ages of 18 and 25 when she marries me. And I want her to be kind to me. Not this whole shit of like, we're gonna like diss you to get us into us, or lie to you to get us into us. Not that shit. Like the real fucking love where it's like, oh wow, I really like you and I really like your posts on YouTube, and like the real stuff. Like underneath in the comments, Zola sucks is probably a pretty good example of a leftist atheist chick that happens to be 18, as far as I know. But make her available in Spokane. Give me the social skills to reach her heart. I'm not trying to romanticize anything. I'm just trying to say that the evidence of God has not been proven to me. It may have been proven to you because you got what you wanted, but you had to work for it. Okay, that's fine. Faith without works is dead. So why have faith when you could just work for that existence? I'm not trying to say that God doesn't exist. I'm saying that based on the lack of evidence, there is no God. I mean, why do you need elves for there to be a fairy tale garden to be beautiful when you have biochemical reactions within flowers? It doesn't make any sense to me that you would put a elf-like person, otherwise known as Christ, in the garden to make them flowers when science doesn't see any of that shit. So prove the existence of the love of God. You have my parameters, you have your mission. Hey, and if you're an atheist and you want to join in, prove the existence of good science, which would be forgiveness and kindness and love and heartfelt feelings and whatever, and beauty in my arms. So theist, atheist, agnostic, whatever you are, try to prove the existence of the romantic love that I'm trying to find. Prove the love of God. How often do you think that women get approached in bars? It's not as often as you think, because I've been going to a couple bars lately at about that time, you know what I mean, where younger women do start to show up, and I'm just like drinking a Pabst with my buddy or something, and I don't really feel confident to go up and approach them with, well, him there, because he would have to be included too, right? And he's like 56 years old and kind of autistic, let's say. He's a little goofy. And also I have no place to take them, and I don't have the money in my pocket to buy me and her drinks, because largely the drinks come from my friends who want to hang out with me. Sometimes I'll go to the bar with like my 26-year-old friend, and the same thing will happen, and a bunch of young women will show up, and he's pretty mature about this. He doesn't do anything. But we don't really have the money right now. I know it's classism, but you know, what are you gonna do? If you're a classist, you're a classist. You're a bigot anyway. But you want to drink. You want to go to a bar and have a drink. How often do you think men approach women? I've seen it happen twice in 3 years, and both times they failed. One guy offered to buy a round for an entire table, and they were just leaving, so they didn't want to drink. And another guy introduced himself as Richard and forgot the line to use, which is, you know, want to grab a drink, or something along the lines of, would you care to have a drink with me? It was just an I'm Richard. And he didn't get the girl because she didn't respond. I didn't hear anything. I looked around. I didn't see any response. Women don't get approached in bars very often, but I'm very certain when they go there without guys, that's why they go to the bars, because they want to be approached. They don't like the Tinder assholes because they're just, well, weird. Even though they're like some of the most attractive men, they're some of the most raunchy, misogynistic men as well. So they don't really deal with the dating sites. Everybody says the dating sites suck, because when it's women, they just want money. I had a thing the other day where it was like she sent her Cash App and wanted me to give her money, and I was like, ha ha ha, no. And then unmatched from her. And that's pretty much all the love that I've gotten from Tinder. I don't know, we can count this and chalk this up to ageism, of course, because if you pay money, you can block your age on Tinder, which shows that it's a bigot-centered website and app, just like Bumble, just like Hinge. You know, somebody needs to make an app for dating where for every 10 women, a guy can join. So there's more women than men on the dating site, which would make sense, because on the dating sites, it's like more men than women. But if you just like reverse that, then you could have a proper dating site with more luck in the end of this loneliness male epidemic. The reason that there's a loneliness male epidemic is 2 reasons. Young men are not very masculine at that age, and also because they don't know how to approach women, and also they're a little scared. Which seems weird to me, because, like, aren't we supposed to evolve? Aren't we supposed to evolve in our confidence as well as a species? But it seems like we've de-evolved as a species, because Gen Z men are such chicken shit about approaching women in bars, except for a couple people where they just get turned down all the time. And I don't understand why they get turned down. Is it because they want to date older men or something? I don't get it. Like, I know some guys that are Gen Z and approach women in bars all the time and always get turned down, even though they're good looking and intelligent and smooth. I don't understand why you're turning down these men. They're not doing anything too sexual, and they're being gentlemen about this. They're going up with like the line, "Care to join me for a drink? Hi, my name is yada yada yada." And they're still getting turned down, and I don't understand why they're getting turned down. The only possible reason is that these women want to date older men, or these women are going to bars and don't want to date men at all. They're just there to drink, which is stupid, because why would you go to a bar to drink? Going to a bar to drink is silly because it's so fucking expensive. Sure, you get the atmosphere of it, but it just seems weird to me not to like throw a little get together with your amigos and amigas and have like a beer at home. The reason you go to bars is because you want to get laid, or you want to find your wife or husband or something. That's usually the social hotspot. Some people call it the atheist church. Some people call libraries the atheist church too. And they don't have to be atheists. I'm just saying, you know, maybe they don't want to date atheists at all. Maybe they're bigots that way. Maybe they're bigots towards economic class. Maybe they're bigots towards weight. Maybe they're bigots towards style and look. They don't like the hip hop style. They don't like the rock style. No matter what they do, it just seems like, you know, there's either a cock block about to come, and nobody likes a cock blocking dude. Maybe those dudes should buzz off. And I've heard of like Gen Z friends of mine that have gotten effectively cock blocked, and they got in a fight in a bar. And I know guys that are like 56, my friend Al, who beat up a guy in a bar because he was hitting on his woman. And I think that those guys that hit on your woman with you there especially are fucking fuckwads, and probably deserve to get their ass beat, if you think about it. I'm not saying that you should be violent. I'm just saying if you're there with your woman and some dude talks to your woman with you there, well, that's kind of an invite to violence, isn't it? It's kind of a recipe for revolution. It's kind of time for those guys to fuck right off, is what I'm saying. So I'm wondering why women don't get approached in bars. And when they do get approached, they're just ungrateful wenches. Like, they don't care. Like, why do you go to a bar? You go to a bar to drink, you're wasting money. You have an apartment, just have a get together. You go to a bar to be social. And if you're not going to be social with men, you're a misandrist, which means you're a bigot, and that doesn't jive well with my socialist views at all. And it shouldn't jive well with your liberal or socialist views at all, to be a bigot. Just give these guys a chance, any guys that approach you on a bar, because the rarity of an approach in a bar is very, very high. Because you're bitches to and maybe you stop being bitches, and we stop with the misogynistic language if you stop being ageist, weightist, classist, and whatever form of bigotry you are. Because turnabout's kind of fair play, bitch. Remember this: if you show me no compassion on my posts on YouTube, and you do some smart ass thing like commenting that I'll never find a chick or something, I'm just going to hide your comments from my YouTube channel so no one will see them, and all the ones that you posted are gone. So there's no point in writing something chastising me, because I'm just going to block you effectively. You are not allowed. Okay, so now we move on to the second nostrum. Prove the existence of the love of God. I want a hot Gen Z girlfriend between the ages of 18 and 25 who is kind to me to marry me ASAP. Prove it. Even if you're an atheist, prove your love. I'm just going to block you if you're a smartass and mean to me, so why even point it out? Why even fucking do the fucking thing? You're just going to have your comment blocked, and you're going to be blocked. No one will see your comments ever again. Quit being dumb. I want you to prove the existence of romantic love towards me. I want a hot Gen Z girlfriend between the ages of 18 and 25 to fall madly in love with me. In fact, I want to be completely irresistible to Gen Z women 100% of the time. If your God can't do it, then your God's not worthy of any prayer or admiration whatsoever. Move along, theist. You've already proved your evidence. Let's play it. Atheists, prove your love. Don't come in, call me a weird creep, or otherwise I'm going to block you. Any of that, gone. You're not here anymore. Theists, you could easily prove the love of God. Introduce me to a hot Gen Z woman between the ages of 18 and 25 and give me the skills that I would need to pursue. Otherwise, I'm not going to believe that love exists, because it doesn't. It's not existent towards me, and I've done nothing to not deserve it. So I'm going to tell you about things that make you call me a weird creep. But if you call me a weird creep, I'm blocking you. You need to buck up and be nice to me, or you're gone. Capiche? Gen Z, fuck me living vicariously through you. You're a bigot ageist generation. I'm Gen X. I want to date Gen Z women. If you don't like it, fuck off. The high telomerase fecundity in men is between the ages of 35 and 55 for baby making, and between the ages of 18 and 25 for women for baby making. So if we're talking about what goes together naturally, duh. Stop being bigots. I want to hear from the love of Gen Z women. I'm not interested in dating millennials, Generation X, or baby boomers at this time, even though I am a pan-agealist and have dated a baby boomer. Any hooters? Gen Z, I think you should stick to dating older women. I'm not trying to say that to say stay in your lane. I'm just saying that you should date older women, because a lot of dudes don't until they're in their 30s. Think of if you started in your 20s, you'd be up on the game, and then by the time you're 35, you would have the wherewithal and knowledge of telomerase in order to have a baby between that and 20 years later, so you would convey the healthiest longevity and intelligence and good lookingness to the child by going back and then dating younger women. You say what I mean? So if you date the MILFs and the cougars, guys, you'll get the sexual experience. And believe me, they know what they want, because I've dated a baby boomer. I'm Generation X. I really think that you should give Generation X women a chance, women in their 40s that are hot. And then, you come back again and date the younger women. Like, what's proper in middle age for men to do. And then, of course, yada, yada, yada. Then you have babies after sowing your wild oats for 35 years and being a kid, essentially, and getting what you want out of life through sex. I'm not saying not have sex. I'm just saying stop being ageist towards the MILFs. You know what I'm saying? Stop being ageist towards the cougars, too. Yeah. You ever think about that one, huh? Let me give you an example of the bro code that I follow that some of you jerk-offs won't. Fucking treason. There's this beautiful new chick that's at the group home that I live at. She's Gen Z, but she's been hanging out with my buddy who's also Gen Z, and I know the age proximus relationships in the terms of baby making create a less healthy baby than with a generational skip. As in Gen Z women with Generation X dudes would create a healthier, longer living, more intelligent, better looking baby. But I can't say anything to her because she's hanging out with him. And he's coming to me like, I just don't want to fuck it up with this girl. But internally I'm thinking, I hope you do. But I'm giving him good advice. I'm like, just keep doing what you're doing, man. You give her little breaks. You're hanging out with her a lot, and then you're giving her a little break so the absence can make the heart grow fonder, and then she'll miss you, and then you go and hang out with her some more. Because he's roommates with another Gen Z dude who was roommates or dating another Gen Z chick. There's roommates with that girl that I was obsessed with that went with the Gen X dude. And then I later told the Gen X dude about telomerase so that I could somewhat, by science, bless them. I don't know if he's told her that, But the reproductive transport cell thing, yeah, the enzymatic telomerase, middle-aged dudes, Gen Z women. I'm just going to keep repeating it to the fullest extent of the law that I can, because I want you to memorize this shit, and I want you to realize who you're fucking over, the one that gave you the information. Stop that. Stop fucking me over. If there is a God, prove it. Prove God's love. And if it's atheism, it's atheism. I don't fucking care. Atheists are really good people, and you just don't know us very well. Quit being bigots. A lot of women will say things like, "You're too old for me to date." But it's funny to me because they're wearing this perfume and it's fermented, and that's an aging process. So you're aging your perfume. You're eating cheese, which is aged milk. You're drinking alcohol, which is aged juice. You know what I mean? Like, the hypocrisy is just hilarious. Ladies, you crack me up. You say you don't want to date an older man, but have you ever heard of this thing called cheese? Yeah, that's aged milk. Have you ever heard of alcohol? Yeah, that's aged plants. Have you ever heard of perfume? Yeah, that's also aged plants. Have you ever seen a vintage car or an antique and thought, whoa, that's really cool? So you do like some things that are aged, and I'm gonna say it, you're in a universe that's 13.8 billion years old. And those materials that make up us are about as old as the Big Bang, maybe a couple million years less than the Big Bang, because it took longer to create oxygen than it does to create hydrogen, because the elements have to fuse together. Helium comes from the fusion of hydrogen, etc., etc., etc. Hydrogen is the oldest element in the universe, and without it, you wouldn't have water and you wouldn't survive. So you do like some things that are than you, Gen Z. Theists are weird. They say that God is not like a slot machine where inserting more prayer into him gets results, because God is not your servant. But then again, they'll go pray for more money, or they'll pray for a girlfriend, or they'll pray for anything, effectively asking God for that gift, which makes God their servant. So whatever they're saying about God not being a servant destroys the effectiveness of prayer, which is why I'm an atheist, because your belief system is contradictory and inaccurate and ineffective. There's all these videos on YouTube about like what to say and what to do when you're a man and you're into younger women and all this shit. But maybe the lynchpin argument is baby making, because if we were to hook up, fall in love, get married, and have kids by conference of telomerase within the reproductive transport cell, I would give your kids stronger DNA, and you being between 18 and 25 would give our kids stronger DNA. And if we combine the two, like interracial breeding but generational gapped breeding, we're already tied together at the reproductive system, the sexual organs, the pituitary gland, because that produces the sex drive, and the sex drive confers reproductive transport cells in its attempt to reach the reproductive stationary cell. You know how lovemaking works. It's not necessarily always to breed, of course, but that's what I'm in it for. I mean, also the pleasure of sex and having a companion, which would be awesome. Women who won't date older men that are middle-aged are strange to me, because they always say something like, "You're too old." But what's a woman's best friend? Diamonds. And do you know how long it takes for a coal deposit to become a diamond? between 1 billion and 3.3 billion years. So you do like things that are aged, including alcohol, cheese, and perfume, and cappuccino. You know, young women will say they don't like older men. They don't want to date older men. But what I know about women is that they love rhymes. They love poetry. And the first poem that we know about is 5,000 years old, which means poetry has existed since the Epic of Gilgamesh. That's another older thing that you may like that means that you do like the aging process. Poetry is 5 millennia old. Also, the reproductive telomerase within middle-aged men will confer more health to your baby because of the telomerase enzyme within the reproductive transport cells. And think of that meeting with the reproductive stationary cell of your ova, because that's soaked in telomerase too. If you want me to put a ring on it, it's going to have to be a diamond, right? Well, a diamond has to age for 1 to 3.3 billion years to become a diamond, so you really do like the aging process now, don't you? Interesting enough, Generation Z women, you do like things that are aged, so you should date me based on the parameters that you do like aged things. Well, think of light. Light takes 100,000 years to reach the surface of the sun from the core, and then it bursts out at the speed of light, reaching Earth in 8 minutes and 20 seconds. So those photons that are generated within the sun that reach your eyes in order to see anything are 100 millennia old. And also the reproductive telomerase within middle-aged men between the ages of 35 and 55 confers greater health to your babies. And think of combining that with the reproductive stationary cell of your ova being between the ages of 18 and 25, because that too is soaked in telomerase. You know, talking of this whole older male breeding thing, there is a curious quote in the Bible, even Psalms 92:14. Let me just never you mind. They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green. I know what we know about middle-aged males conferring the most telomerase when they become fathers, giving the kids the strongest health, and the fact that they were breeding with older men in those days. Well, apparently, because like Methuselah and shit, Noah were hundreds of years old. But anyway, there is an obvious love of older dudes within the Old Testament, and Jesus said to keep the old writs holy, or whatever he fucking said. So, given the telomerase, given the Bible quote, maybe it's time to end ageism against Generation X males, Gen Z women. For the love of God. There's that old saying, once you go black, you never go back. And that's fine and all. I'm all for interracial relationships because mixed race babies are pretty healthy. But hear me out here. Once you date gray, a little bit, you will never stray. Feel me? What would you say is the definition of a healthy working spermatozoid? Well, it would be the ability to swim at first. It would be the ability to outmaneuver the other sperm because they do attack each other. 300 million sperm are released in an ejaculation, and you think it's like the one that arrives first, but that's not true. That's not the one that fertilizes the egg because about 200 sperm arrive at the same time. The ability of a spermatozoan to be good and doing its duty as a spermatozoan is its ability to dig. The ability to burrow. And I don't know, I just think that kind of shit's cool and interesting. Peep this lawn. Look at the trees, dignified, integritous. Probably the oldest thing in this line are the trees, right? But the youngest things are the squirrels. And the squirrels depend upon the trees, the old trees, for food, while the trees depend upon the squirrels to poop out their seeds and spread further life around wherever. So you have the young and the old working interdependent of one another. This is another example of an intergenerational pattern within the universe.
As an older guy interested in younger males and a libtard or whatever you want to call me,